time to take a TO with Coaches Turner and O'Neill. Produced by Kurtis Cross and engineered by DJ Chrissy. Be sure to listen now at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Buzzsprout, or Google Podcasts. Download the app and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode of Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill.
It's time to take a TO with coaches Steve Turner and Casey O'Neill. Your new favorite podcast features conversation from the world of high school, college, and pro sports, along with other riveting content. Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Turner O'Neill Podcast, on Twitter at Turn On Podcast, or visit www.turnerando'neill.com. Thanks to our partners, Ray Cruz and MCF Mortgage, the Tamara Cusick Team, Dynamic DJ Entertainment, Healthy Baller, and Insurance Alliance Group, LLC. Our sponsors, O'Neill Development, LLC, Next Level Lacrosse, Peace Players International, A Squared Home and Office Solutions, and Collins Funeral Home. Our donors, Justin O'Neill, Winsight Media, and Redwood Investments. Take a TO with Coach Turner and O'Neill is produced by Kurtis Cross and engineered by DJ Chrissy. Now, we welcome you to today's episode as we take a TO with Coaches Turner and O'Neill. Here's your host, Kurtis Cross.
Welcome to week 9 of Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill. I am Kurtis Cross, your host. With us, as always, Coach Steve Turner, Coach Casey O'Neill, and we cannot forget our engineer, DJ Chrissy. We'd like to thank our partners, Healthy Baller, Dynamic DJ Entertainment, the Tamara Cusick Team, Ray Cruz, and MCF Mortgage, and Insurance Alliance Group. Fellas, how are we doing this week?
Doing great. Ready to get things going again tonight. And excited for our guest who we got coming on today.
We've got a special guest tonight, Coach Casey O'Neill. How you feeling, fella?
Here we are, another week, another opportunity to put out some great content. Ready to roll.
All right. Well, we will address a couple of different things today. We've got some important material to get to, a special guest, and of course, we're going to discuss Coach JT.
Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill would like to thank our friends of the program, Richard Butts Jr., Jean and Clorinda Carter, Sean Clifton, Paula Cross, Justin O'Neill, Susan and Brendan O'Neill Sr., Amy O'Neill Richard, Damian and Brooke Stevenson, Marcus Taylor. If you'd like to become a friend of the program, go to www.turnerando'neill.com and click Friends of the Podcast.
One headline is brought to you by
Real estate is more than just houses. It's about people too. The Tamara Cusick Team offers an all-inclusive approach, making the home buying and selling process efficient, financially smart, and stress-free for you. From home prep-up to complimentary staging, expert counsel to an experienced and qualified team of professionals, let's chat houses. Visit www.tamara4homes, that's the number 4.com, or call 301-780-4663.
Coach Thompson. Coach Thompson was saving my life. For giving me the opportunity. I was recruited by every school in the country for football and basketball. And an incident happened in high school, and all that was taken away. No other teams, no other schools were recruiting me anymore. My mom went to Georgetown and begged him to give me a chance, and he did.
First black coach to win an NCAA title, 97% graduation rate, Big Man University, St. Anthony's High School, 1966 to 1972, a 122-28 record, a Hall of Famer. He attended Archbishop Carroll High School, with Georgetown from 1972 to 1999 with a 71% winning record. Let's not forget one of his greatest achievements, bringing Rayful Edmond III into his office and looking him in his face and pointing his finger at him and saying, "Leave my players alone." Coach John Thompson passed away this morning. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
Oh, man. My heart goes out to his family, who's also families of ours on I Street. JT3 is a graduate of the school. As you said earlier, Coach played in the league. Ronnie, his son, played at Gonzaga before going on over to Flint Hill. So for me, it hits home in a lot of ways. I mean, he's been an inspiration to me as a black male coach, and he paved the way for me to have an opportunity to sit in the seat that I sit in today because of how he did it and how he continued to fight for people like me to have an opportunity like I have.
2020 has brought so many hits, and just when you I wouldn't say take things for granted, but you wake up today and hear something like this, and a larger than life figure like John Thompson brings me back to my childhood, going to basketball games with my father and watching the Georgetown Hoyas back at the old Cap Center USA Arena. And it brought back memories of watching them play, watching them compete, seeing that just iconic figure on the sideline, with his team that just reflected the way he coached and just the person he was. And then continuing to grow up, and I'll be honest, I thought more about my drive home from work. I would listen to John Thompson on the radio when he was on 980. And it was this
somewhere.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. And that soothing voice and just hearing him interview just more iconic people. But it's tough. Rest in peace. Rest in peace.
Did he talk about having a sausage sandwich and sticking his toes up in the air somewhere?
Yes.
Yes, he did. Being a native Washingtonian, the 80s was the time to watch Georgetown basketball.
No doubt.
And, seeing him with the towel over his shoulder, small afro, coaching those guys with those what seemed like the thickest glasses in the world. And, you see him on TV, you hear his voice, but until you're in his presence, he was 6'9", 6'10", maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, my grandmother would watch Georgetown basketball. I'll never forget, she was at White Flint Mall, and she told me that she saw Patrick Ewing there, and she would only know him because she watched Georgetown basketball. And that's something that Coach would make you do. He came here, he put Georgetown on the map. I saw somewhere in a tweet somewhere, was he the best hire ever? Because he was reluctant to take the job. Georgetown was not on the athletics map.
Right.
Maybe in some lesser known sports at the time. But for that reason, I got into Georgetown women's basketball. John Thompson made you watch, made you become a fan. And I have a friend who went to Elizabeth City State. He's a Georgetown fan. He teaches up here now, but we watch Georgetown basketball. And that's the thing to watch. And I mean, for Alonzo Mourning, Othello Harrington, Dikembe, Patrick Ewing, Eric Sleepy Ford, David Wingate, all these guys came from Georgetown, made a name for themselves. And guys after that made a name for themselves as well. Who's Jeff Green? He didn't play under John Thompson, right. But as you know, the John Thompson influence was there. So if you're a basketball fan anywhere, especially in D.C., a piece of you was lost today because we lost Big John.
Especially college basketball fans. And just the way I remember Georgetown, I'd see people growing up wearing Georgetown sweatshirts before it was even a thing to wear like your team's hoodies or sweats or whatever it was. And let's not forget, the Big East is not what it would have been without John Thompson. So I look at Jim Boeheim, Raleigh Massimino, even Gary Williams was at Boston College. Who else was in coaching in that conference? But he was the guy. I just loved rooting for him so much back in the day. It was just, he's an icon.
For me, it was his relationships. And you talked about the radio show. What I was always am so impressed with him on that show and listening to him on that show was his ability to never act like he knew it all. Like if there was a subject or there was a sport or there was something that he wasn't the expert on or had the answers to, he always brought in people who could give you the answers or were the experts on it, and he allowed them to speak and and have the words. I mean, twice I was able to catch his show where literally Bobby Knight's in conversation with him and ends up crying on both episodes.
Right.
He just had that way about him, and I'm a big Carolina fan, so his relationship with late Dean Smith, is so much I could say about this man, and I just want to thank him for what he gave to this game, even in his passing away, that he'll continue to give this game, because there's going to be the next John Thompson who are going to follow his lead and be ambassadors for our young men.
Ladies and gentlemen, we lost a legend today. The basketball world mourns the passing of John Thompson. The starting five.
The starting five is brought to you by...
With many social events being canceled, the Mid-Atlantic Professional DJ Association is your virtual event and party headquarters. We are the entertainment professionals, bringing live DJs, happy hour events, trivia, game nights, and karaoke to a virtual format. Entertain your staff, students, residents, or members with a virtual event. The party begins now. To find out more or to book your next event, visit www.mapdja.com or call 301-942-4500. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the starting five. The coaches have never seen these 5 questions. Chrissy, do you have the ding ding available? Because Coach Casey will always overtalk his 30 seconds.
Just wondering when this joke's going to get kind of out the door.
It's not.
Pasta, the bell. Put some on this guy over here.
Ariana Grande.
Well, at least finally in our production meeting, Steve took a little. You two got into it. I could just sit back and relax on the Zoom.
That's because I called
chat.
you brother. Yes, we did have a Jones
I think
session.
he's getting a
Did we? Ladies and gentlemen, it's the starting five.
Oh, boy.
5 questions for each coach. They each get to answer 30 seconds. They've never seen the questions before. And we will start with Coach Casey. Number 1, best player to come out of Georgetown.
Basketball, right?
Basketball, yes.
Okay, I would hope so. Oh, man, that's a good question. First name that came to mind, Allen Iverson. And I know I wanted to say Alonzo Moore and all these others, but, man, Allen Iverson was a game changer. And I love watching him play. I love watching him go against the big boys and attacking the rim and making everyone better. I'm about to get dinged. Allen Iverson. That's my answer.
Oh, he made it by tenths of a second.
I saw her with her finger over there. She's about to hit the buzzer.
Coach Turner.
This is a tough one,
It's
because
very tough. It's very
I got
tough.
a lot of favorite.
And yet
I got
mean,
a lot of favorite Hoyas for a lot of different reasons.
Right.
But when you look at this thing and you say, if you had to put the face on Mount Rushmore first, it's the current coach, Big Pat.
Got to put Pat up there.
He started this thing off. There's been some great ones after him. Reggie and the Miracles. I love AI, but I'm going with Patrick Ewing.
Patrick Ewing. Question 2, coming right back to Coach Turner. If you had a choice, you can caddy for any golfer you want or ride shotgun with any NASCAR driver. Which one you picking?
That's very easy for me. I'm caddying for Tiger.
Caddying for Tiger. All
Read
right.
the question again.
Caddy for any golfer you choose or ride shotgun with any NASCAR driver. That's a thrill.
I do love golf, and I'd love to sit there with. I'm going to go opposite. I mean, just get in that car and see what it's like to go 210 miles per hour around the track. So
With who?
oh man, I don't know. Maybe Denny Hamlin, one of those guys. I just first thing, I don't know many NASCAR guys.
You're just going to jump in the car. You want to go 210, huh?
Yeah. Who's the most famous, right? I don't know.
All right. Question 3, coming right back to you, sir. Morton's or Ruth Chris?
Ruth Chris.
Coach Turner.
Ruth Chris.
All right. That's an easy one. All right. Coming to you, Coach Turner. Saturday night, you're heading out with Mrs. Turner. Are you going to see a live band or a DJ? What would be a better night? Not like a super live band, but like a local live band.
Careful with the answer on this one.
Live band or DJ?
You going to the hottest nightclub, or you going to see a great local band, put on a show?
I'm going with a great local band who's a great cover band.
Oh, yeah, you got to have a great cover band. I got you. Coach O'Neill.
I'm going to have DJ Chrissy and Kurt.
He's trying to buy extra seconds.
Yeah.
He's trying to buy time.
I'd probably, with the wife on a date, definitely band. Definitely band.
Definitely a band. All right. Number 5, coming back to you. You are offered $1 million. Are you going to bet on yourself that you can get a birdie at Augusta or get 1 basket, 1 rebound, and 1 steal in an NBA game in 1 quarter of play?
Oh, man. Oh.
At your current age.
At my current age, that would be tough. Man, if it were college basketball, I'd probably say I could pull that off. And NBA is just a different animal there. I'll go with the birdie.
You're getting the birdie at Augusta.
I'll get that birdie. Yeah.
All right, Coach Turner.
That's a tough one, man.
You're smarter than a lot of basketball players.
I could score a basket. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's the steal. Or the rebound.
I'm going with the basketball. I'm staying in my wheelhouse.
All right.
I love golf. Wish I had more time to play golf. And I probably I'd be willing to bet that I could get the birdie. But I think it would be a more exciting experience to get it done in basketball.
You gonna go down there with Gobert and Giannis and all them, or you shooting from the outside?
I'm going to get the rebound inside. I ain't afraid of none of them big jokers. Half the time they all want to stand outside the 3-point line, so I think the rebound will be easy to get.
That is true. All right. And ladies and gentlemen, that is your starting 5. The starting 5. Healthy Baller. Become your own success story. At Healthy Baller, our team of specialists is committed to providing injury recovery and strength and conditioning training tailored to individual needs. Watching our clients break barriers fuels our passion for athletic development. Call 844-622-5537 or visit healthyballer.com. Ray Cruz. Take advantage of historically low mortgage rates for your first, next, or refinanced mortgage. Ray believes home mortgages should be about relationships. With rates as low as 2.875, you can save on your monthly mortgage or choose to cut years off of your mortgage, saving tens of thousands. To learn more about your options, call Ray Cruz at 301-761-2278 or apply online at raypcruz.com. Ladies and gentlemen, today's caller has 26 years of service in the NBA, 16 of those in the front office for the Washington Wizards. He is widely regarded as one of the most innovative and creative executives. He is also an adjunct professor in the sports industry management at Georgetown University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show the general manager of the Washington Wizards, Mr. Tommy Sheppard.
Hey.
Mr. Sheppard, welcome to the show. We thank you for being here today. I imagine, like the entire basketball world, you are thinking of Big John today.
I would take it one step further, just on behalf of the whole world, how much we miss Coach Thompson and what an impact he made on countless lives around the globe. Certainly to the game of basketball, but more importantly to me, just the game of life and the chances that he afforded so many people to have a better life and the messages that he sent. From the beginning of his coaching career all the way through. He walked the walk. He definitely lived by actions, not words. And there was just, we lost the Titan today. And the Gonzaga family obviously was rocked with this, in particular with his son, JT3, being impacted and everybody that knew him being impacted. But what a legend, what a legacy. And I tell you what, we definitely have a better world because of his footsteps.
Absolutely. And again, we thank you for being here. I know you have limited time today, so the coaches and I would like to get right into the conversation. We have some very important things going on with the NBA. Obviously, you are mixed right up to the top of that. But I want to just ask you a question about the Wizards, and then I think the coaches want to ask you a few questions. You've got your major players under contract, Wall, Beal, Hachimura, for the next few seasons. What do you feel will move the Wizards into the talk for playoffs and hopefully a decent run into the playoffs as we move into 21, 22, 23? Where are you looking to move the needles, so to say, to get the Wizards where you want to see them go?
Any team in the NBA will tell you it starts with health. If we're blessed with good health, we're a really good team. We were really smart when John was healthy. We were regarded as really intelligent people. And then when John got hurt, all of a sudden we were the biggest dummies you've ever seen. And I get it. That's the sports fans' right. But if your best players aren't out on the floor, you're going to have a really hard time. You might get away with a couple games here and there, but overall, that's why they call them stars. That everyone looks up to them. And when we didn't have John Wall by the time we start playing basketball again next season, John will not have played an NBA game for 2 years.
Wow.
And that's travesty. It's a big loss for fans, and it's a big loss for him, big loss for the Wizards. But I don't look back, I look ahead. And I really can't wait for that day. I think when you have John and Bradley Beal in the backcourt, that's one of the more dynamic backcourts in the NBA. Since John has been gone, Bradley's game is elevated because it has to. Bradley became players in the NBA. He certainly changed his game where he's now an amazing creator for others, for himself. Has a lot more to his game than when he was with John and was a lot more in catch-and-shoot situations. So we benefited, and we really hope to benefit not just in the backcourt, but certainly with all the other players. We feel that John's always been able to elevate role players to a much higher level. We proved that over the years with Trevor Ariza and Mike Scott and Martell Webster, Jared Dudley, a lot of guys that come in. You judge a point guard. We always judge it by production, Coach, and that's where it all starts and ends. But production also equates to big contracts in the NBA. And John, he should have gotten points off everybody's contract because he'd been a hell of an ace. He's got a lot of guys paid in the NBA.
I do want to say, before I forget, because this is too important not to forget, I want to thank you and the Washington Wizards organization as a whole. I'm a huge WNBA fan, and when I go to, the new arena, I see Wizards in the stands supporting the Mystics. So I think that's hugely important. I thank you for doing that and just encouraging a culture where, we can go down to Capital One Arena and we can fill it with, 19,000 fans and we can throw things in the stands. But the Mystics have done a hell of a job, and it really, from a fan's perspective, when I sit in those stands over in the Southeast Arena, I'm so happy to see that the Wizards are putting a lot of energy behind the Mystics as well. As we know, that's very important. But I think, Coach Turner, you have a question.
Tommy, again, I want to thank you for coming on with us today and appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to hang with us for a little while tonight. I'm gonna turn this in a little bit of a different direction, and this is a two-part question. First, we've had so much going on during this pandemic with the social injustice. And just a week ago, Jacob Blake shot 7 times in the back. And then we see our men in the NBA take a stance and they shut it down. Talk to us a little bit about, your feelings on what those guys did and standing in that moment. And then talk to us, I would say the second part is just talk to us a little bit about what the Wizards have done as an organization going along with what is going on in the world today.
Well, I could never have been prouder than the NBA and be part of the NBA than what happened when Milwaukee refused to take the court and the way that all that kind of unfolded. That shows, okay, I'm not a numerologist, but 4 years to the date, that's when Colin Kaepernick took a knee in a preseason game and basically gave up the rest of his career and was vilified. And here, fast forward 4 years, and the entire NBA refused to play playoff games. And they recognized the platform that they're afforded. And I think the word got thrown out there so quickly, you couldn't grab it back, but they weren't boycotting the NBA. The NBA owners have been fantastic partners with this, and everybody is up to the challenge, and we all demand better from our government, better from ourselves. So that situation there, was really, man, that was a wonderful moment to observe people using their platform for good and to really bring a spotlight and be willing to take on an awful lot of verbal abuse from people that don't understand or don't care. That doesn't mean that it's not right. It was the right thing to do. And that's just tremendous. And I can't, it's hard to fathom, but when George Floyd situation happened, to when Jacob Blake situation happened, there were 33 other incidents between those two incidents that have been marked by police violence across the country. This is an ongoing thing. And we're not crazy enough to think this is not going to happen anymore. We just want to demand and deserve social justice. Police must be held accountable for brutality. All the things that we know that need to happen, they don't happen overnight. And that was probably the hardest part about that moment in time when the Bucks decided not to take the court, is trying to figure out, well, why wasn't the police officer being held accountable? And what you realize is we have a huge education process for all of us to understand how the government works, how elections work, how bills work, and the fact that those wheels sometimes turn very slow. So we got to do a better job of celebrating the progress that is made and the things that in the short term that do bring light to some of the darkness, and make sure that means are being corrected. But the big overall picture, let's make the world a better place for our children. Let's make it better for everybody by understanding how powerful the vote really is. And to vote, you have to be informed. Obviously, it starts with being registered, but you have to be informed. And we took it on a very local level, working with Malcolm Jenkins and the Athletes Coalition. We're able to, every single person in our organization that votes in their local government, they're able to get a really basic flashcard of here's who's running, here's what their platforms is, here's what's at stake in every local government. Because the national election is a national election, and that's very important, obviously, too, but to the local level. So bringing all that education to everybody was very critical and very crucial. I think the biggest thing for the Wizards, what we're doing is not just collectively as the NBA, but on a local level. We're allowing our players to use that platform to be a megaphone and for us to amplify their message. But it's not what Tommy Sheppard's doing or Ted Leonsis is doing. It's what the Washington Wizards, the Washington Mystics, the Capital City Go-Go, what our players are passionate about, and being able to put them on the right platform and be there shoulder to shoulder without any airspace. Because I think that's really what the general public will look for, is cracks, right? And water always looks for cracks. We got to keep that floor impermeable and keep water flowing, and don't let there be any division, and really having that united voice. And these are just steps, and it all sounds great. We have to be people of action, not words. And so I think if you look back at our time during COVID hiatus, we were able to march as monumental basketball with the Mystics, with the Go-Go, shoulder to shoulder, to bring some attention. And we marched on Juneteenth, which was a very critical, very moving period for us to do. That date in particular, obviously, for obvious reasons. And Bradley Beal spoke so eloquently, and some of our other players, leaders. That's how it should be. These are the people that we need to keep the focus so they can put the spotlight out there and voice everything. And I know this as coaches of high school kids. You know how these players look up to big players in the NBA. And we can't have guys that are up there acting like fools and talking about them themselves. Talk about making the world a better place. That's how you change. And hopefully young players look at it and they saw that and they look up to that and they want to model that. And that's how we got to change happens when everybody wants it and demands it.
I think you're definitely seeing that. And, I would go further to say I thought it was neat to hear, the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan, say we all just need to listen. Like, stop and just listen and allow our players to speak. And to me, the NBA as an organization as a whole, you guys have done this thing the right way, and you guys are being ambassadors and leaders for us all to see how we have to all work together. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Trust me on this. We're all very grateful, and the more we can educate ourselves, the better off we'll all be. I was watching Coach Carroll. Pete Carroll did an interview the other day and said, hey, we all need to be schooled up. We all need to be coached up. And so many of us have a long way to go in a very short time, so we better be dedicated to learning and to listening. And I'm 100% subscribe to that. I've been in the league an awful long time. Man, you learn something every single day. And what really was remarkable, thinking back and reflecting back on Coach Thompson and the time that I was blessed to know him in my lifetime, so many things that are going on today, he stood up against in a totally different climate, in a far less inclusive climate, in a far more volatile climate, and stared everybody down and did the right thing. And that gives you courage. And, you know, Helen as a pioneer, absolutely, but his legacy, I think he'd be proud to see what's going on with athletes today.
Tommy, Coach O'Neill here, Casey O'Neill, assistant AD at Gonzaga, and also a lacrosse coach. I do love basketball, and I want to say thank you for being on our show tonight. I love people's stories and reading about you and hearing about you. You've got an incredible story, but one of the consistents in the conversation so far is about young kids, and I always like to hear from our guests about what advice they have for young kids, not only in today's society about, you know, the things myself and Coach Turner can talk to our young kids about, but also for them to strive for goals, because you're in an industry, in a position, you know, with sports industry management, going back to all the things you've done, that young kids want to get to that point, right? You've worked with the Olympics, European basketball, the Nuggets, the Wizards. I mean, there's so much going on, but I guess two-part question, you know, what is the advice that, you know, you give kids in today's world? And then they're going to want to know, you know, how do they stay consistent and get to a position that you have?
Well, the first part of your question, the one thing we really try to stress to young players, and we're getting them, you can always tell, I promise you can tell who's had great high school coaches. And who's had the influences, and never, ever, ever, I know you both, but don't ever take lightly the job that you have, because you're forming men at such a young age, and the impressions that they carry forward are coming from you. And I've been in locker rooms when players are having complete meltdowns, and the first person they call is their high school coach or their grassroots coach. So don't ever take it lightly, the influence you have. But I will tell you this, I cannot stress enough to young players just to be authentic to who you are as a person. The whole creation of social media is here to stay. I'm not going to vilify it. I'm just going to make a very declarative statement that if we were all half as good as we looked at social media, this would be a perfect world. But it's not a perfect world. And people tend to misrepresent themselves and misrepresent their lives and their lifestyles and who they are because they want likes and they want people to see that. It's like Hollywood. You don't want them to look behind the curtain. You want to know that that's a stunt double. Like, I promise no one's as interesting as they are on social media. No one's as great as looking as they are on social media. Nobody has all these unbelievable workouts and days like they do on social media.
Right.
That's not real life. And so we really try to stress upon people that first and foremost, the need for social sanitation. If you're entering a job market now, the first thing we do, we have former SCI agents that go and they go deep into your social media, who you follow and who follows you, and the most people you've communicated with, and the most people those people have communicated with, and all the degrees. And it gives us this big readout. And the guy that tells me how much he loves the Lord also seems to love strippers. And the guy that tells us, you know, all these things have to be in line for us to really believe your character. And so if you say one thing, but your actions kind of betray you because we follow you. Like I grew up in high school, I was praying. My parents never knew what I was up to, and these kids they tell us all what they're up to all the time. And so that's crazy to me. But I think we've got to agree that social media is not going anywhere. Instagram's not going anywhere, and by itself, it's just an app, right? It's just a tool, but it's how you use it, and being able to have the ability to challenge people, to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to be humble and kind. Because that's really who's going to succeed in life. I mean, one of the greatest players in the NBA, Kawhi Leonard, has zero social media footprint. He's tweeted twice, I think, in his career. Like, it didn't stop him from being a great player. It didn't stop him from being an MVP, winning a title, unbelievable endorsements, winning 2 titles, right? So the lack of social media didn't hinder his progress. He just let his actions speak for himself. So I think that's one thing that we really try to impress on young players. You know, we did draft interviews today with guys that are going to be in this year's draft. And we had to bring up some of their social media patterns and some of their habits And it was very uncomfortable for that player because he didn't realize that we had the reach that we did, and ask him about some of the people he communicates with on social media. And they're getting smarter, but there's still slip-ups. And those slip-ups, if we're going to pay you millions and millions of dollars, I really don't want to see your character have these huge flaws. I don't really want to, you have my trust till it's burned, not till it's earned, right?
Yep.
But once you burn it, I can't come back. These are millions and millions of dollars. And as you know, Coach, a head coach's job is at stake. But so is all the assistant coaches and all their families who I see their kids and their parents and everyone. So when a coach gets fired, millions of people's lives get, not millions, but in our business, a lot of lives get affected.
Exactly.
And if we did the job on the coach by bringing him a player that's less than true character, then we contributed to his downfall. And I can't sleep at night with that. We have to have good people that are consistent characters. And so the social media piece, I think, is probably as unappetizing as there is. So we just try to coach people on how to be authentic. And I think the second part for me, I appreciate your comments about where my career has gone and everything, but people always say they want to do what I do. I said, well, if you want to do what I do, you have to do what I did, for 26 years, 26, but it's really been more than that. I was at UNLV with Jerry Tarkanian right out of college, 91 to 94, Rolly Massimino. I was blessed to be with the Nuggets, like you said, and working with all the Olympics and all that. Like, that stuff was great. But I also have 7 kids. I'm a huge family guy, and I had to sacrifice probably, as my wife says, we've been married 27 years. I've made the mistake of introducing her and saying we've been married 27 seasons, so don't do that. But, we've probably been away from each other. I'm not kidding when I say more than a quarter, maybe half of our time. I've been long distance. So it's a very difficult exchange. I love what I do, and it's busts us beyond anything I could ever dreamed of. But make no mistake, this business takes prisoners. It takes you away from your family,
right,
and it takes you away from the time, which is the most valuable gift you can give your kids. So balance is probably the most important thing I'd say behind your character in this business. Is you better have great balance,
right,
and you better know. One thing in my office, my tribute to Coach Thompson has been in every office I've ever been in. I always have an uninflated basketball.
Deflated ball.
And I always have that where players come in. I have a bunch of different balls, FIBA balls, college ball, NBA ball, and then I have that deflated ball, and that's the one everybody asks about. And I always give them Coach Thompson's line. What are you going to do if there's no air in that ball? And so the more we can have messages and obvious illustrations for what we're trying to talk about, I think guys all understand. But the minute we don't have good leadership at young ages, like where you guys are, that's just it screws up everything. We can tell, like I said, I can tell who's been blessed with good people in their life just by the way we interview with them.
Powerful, Tommy. Thank you for those words. Question
Absolutely.
for you.
Thank you for taking care of young people.
Thank you. And I'm going to keep doing it. Trust us. Tell us a little bit. What did you guys learn about the team during their time in the bubble to help you guys going forward with bringing this team to the top?
Well, the greatest thing I think about the Orlando experience for our team, we went there with very low expectations because we didn't have Beal, we didn't have Wall, we didn't have Bertans. So Bertans and Beal were our 2 best players for the season. And we went there basically as the second youngest team in Orlando. And what I wanted to see was our guys compete. And you're going to hear me say that word every single time. We want to compete for championships. We want to compete always. We want to compete at everything we do. So let's get down there. And if you look at our records, you say, well, they didn't do a very good job. I am lobbying the NBA for 42-minute games. We kicked butt for 42 minutes. We just couldn't finish the other 6. But our young players got better. And the experience down there, it's kind of like you guys would equate it to when you move some kids up from JV and they got to play up. And you got to learn to live with the mistakes. And you got to learn to live with, hey, they're not as talented as the guy they're guarding maybe. But you also know that's the only way they're going to get better. You can't go around problems. You got to go through them. So for us, it was a fantastic experience. And our players away from the court, they really hadn't experienced something like that. And I ask you guys this, when do you think the last time NBA players were all at the same time at the same hotel, eating the same food, riding in the same van, and wearing the same clothes? It didn't happen since probably 8th grade camp.
Right,
but that's what you have at the NBA. Look, LeBron was getting on the same buses we were getting on. You know, Harden eating the same food we were eating. Everybody in the same hotel. You know, it was great in that way. It really took away a lot of what I think the NBA, I would say we overdo the customization, the glamorization. We stay at great places, all this lifestyle. Well, that all goes away. This was no different than when you take guys down and they play at the no-count. And, you know, those AAU tournaments that form a young player, that's what we were doing all over. And so most guys equated, and that's why I can't tell you enough, never discount your influence on the kids. Everybody equated to, hey, this is just like being an AAU. Mm-hmm. And so we took it out. We had several opportunities where we had Stacey Abrams jump on a Zoom call. Chris Singleton, who was a fantastic speaker, his mother was killed in Charleston as part of the Emmanuel 9. We had a lot of speakers that zoomed right in with our players, and we had face-to-face, brilliant dialogue, opportunities for our players to learn from some of the most amazing people that weren't basketball related. Because what we found in Orlando, there was no release. There was no release, nowhere you could go if you're surrounded by basketball. And so we had to create these little gaps where guys could just talk about anything but basketball. And I think that was really important. And then, you know, what was neat is we got a kid like Jerome Robinson, his country, and he takes our guys fishing. And some guys had never caught a fish before. Some guys never threw a line in the water before. And so he was able to school them. And then we had just a lot of once in a lifetime kind of experiences for guys. And when you're playing basketball 24/7 and you don't really get a lot of experiences outside of basketball, there was some opportunities for that stuff. Some guys wouldn't play golf for the first time. And so I think I guess I'm getting back to that same word, the humility, the ability to kind of put yourself out there, be vulnerable, let your teammates see you be vulnerable. I think you all grow. And you all grow fond of each other. You get a lot of genuine respect for each other. I think a lot of times we spend so much time to try to put that coat of armor on and show we're both. So that was a great experience for us. And I think for our coaches, we usually travel. Think about this, Coach Turner. We travel with 55 people during the NBA year. Well, the NBA only allowed us to take 35. So we over-indexed. We took 8 medical people. We took 14 players. And so from there, it was just really the coaching staff and myself. Like we took 8 coaches where normally we have about 14 because we have a lot of development coaches. So Scotty Brooks had to jump out and be in drill. And assistant coaches on the front of the bench had to do a lot more player development there. So there was just a renewal of why we do what we do. Because all these guys started out for the love of the game, coaching players up, let's make them better. And then we've done such an unbelievable job in the NBA, but sometimes I think we over-index too much where, you know, I think we have allowed ourselves to get further away from relationships with players. And this brought us all back to more relationships with players. So that was a great experience for us too. And I tell you, there's a hell of a lot of empathy I think players and coaches ended up having for each other because we were playing every other day. You know, and that's a stretch. It really is. When you see what Portland was able to do, remember that they played every day, every other day for basically 30 straight days. That's incredible to me that they were able to achieve what they did. So I think it all got us back to the love of the game, how much we genuinely love it. And I promise you this, the game is so much better when you don't have to go step on an airplane and do it back to back. These games in the playoffs is wonderful because there's nobody, they call them home and road games, but they're all in the same gym. You know? And it's surreal that, you know, I've been on some bad teams, so I can speak from experience, but it's surreal playing in an empty gym. Like when I was in Denver one year, we had an awful year. I was like, this reminds me of that. Like there was 50 people in the gym. You know, so we made a crack at, hey, this is like a D League game or the AAU, the losers bracket kind of, like you got parents and girlfriends in the fan kind of deal.
That's it.
The NBA in Orlando, there was you had 25 people watching the game. So it brought you back to your roots in a lot of ways. But it definitely brought us closer.
You know, you mentioned the Capital City Go-Go. I think that's a wonderful product. My family and I went down there. I think it was last year around the holidays, and a great product you have going on down there. I'm going to switch a little bit and talk about from the fan experience. I've always thought that from the days of Susan O'Malley that the arena being in Chinatown lends itself to the perfect location downtown, Fans get off work, they stay downtown, have dinner, come to the arena for a Caps game, Wizards game, or whatever Capital One has going on. How has being downtown enhanced the fan experience? You know, you have a lot of arenas that are in the suburbs and that sort of thing, but what do you feel like it brings to Capital One Arena by being in the heart of Washington, D.C.?
Well, it's such a great uniter, like you said. Most of the Wizards fans, hardcore from D.C., from Maryland. And it's a great conveyor, and it's a great central location for people that work downtown and wherever they live, they still have access in and out because of the metro, because there's so many things to do before games. And I think it's just a great connector, conveyor of not just for the Wizards, not just for the Mystics, the Capitals, but all the concerts and events that go on there. You know, it's one of the biggest employers of all of D.C. You know, so many people, and that's what makes it so tough when we don't have events. Is that there's no money coming in right now, and that makes it very difficult. But our practice facility and where you saw the go-go play, that was a humongous investment in the future of DC in an area that doesn't get a lot of love in Ward 8.
Absolutely.
And that is what our critical piece, if we're going to be a pillar in the community and we're going to make a lot of money in downtown, we certainly have a responsibility to DC to send it and spend it in other areas where it doesn't have the love. And I think we were able to start that in Ward 8 and build something. And it's okay. Like I always talk to kids and they say, you know, I really want to play in the NBA. I said, you know what? If you go and do what your teachers tell you to do and you use your brain that you've been given and you really work at it, I want you to own an NBA team, not just play for an NBA team. Because I think that's you got to dream bigger than just the game, because the game comes and it goes. And you never take anybody's dream, but maybe you can enhance the dream. Think further. What else could you do if you could change the world as an NBA player? But what if you could do even more as an NBA owner and much more bigger dreams? Because I think sometimes people get set on one little dream, and that's a great thing to have, and it's a great North Star, but if it doesn't work out, does that mean your life's over? Certainly not. So give yourself a lot of different options and opportunities. And for us, quite frankly, Ward 8, I'll just, I'll keep it straight with you guys, I always will. It reminds a lot of guys of where they grew up. And a lot of guys were very familiar and very comfortable in that environment because it felt like home of what they grew up with. And it reminds everybody. And Coach Thompson had a saying. Everybody has a similar saying, but no, I tell you what, don't you're pulling water out of the well. Don't ever forget to send the bucket back down.
There you go.
Somebody else needs to come up behind. And that's what we think we've been able to do, establish in Ward 8, and certainly we need to grow it even better. But we want Ward 8. If you remember, you guys are a long time Washingtonians. You guys weren't running around D.C. going to the Cap Center area when you were kids. If you were, it's because you were either very lost or you were looking for trouble. But how much an arena can change an area, and what Cap Center was able to do, we certainly hope St. East were able to do that on a similar level, certainly smaller because the arena's small, but be able to help build up that community and add new things. It was the first new building that had been built out in Ward 8 in like 50 years. But we've already seen the progress as they're renovating St. East and changing the housing community situations around. It's got potential to really become something, but we don't want it to change. Like our players, we're all very familiar with. We want to keep it like what Nitsky was trying to do. Let's keep the money in the community, give it to people who care. Don't let people from the outside come in and chase everybody out that's in the community. Let's keep the money in the community. Let's have community leaders be the people that set the tone. And that's what we really want to support in Ward 8.
Well, we thank you for doing that. I think it's a beautiful facility. I will tell you this. Your staff down there is awesome because you can't walk through the door, excuse me, without them wanting you to become a Mystic season ticket holder, right, or something like that. So they are doing their job, and you tend to employ a lot of young folks down there who have energy, who love the Wizards, who love the Caps, who love the monumental sports, product. So I thank you I'm a native Washingtonian. I grew up in D.C. I thank you for bringing the St. E's location there. It's a beautiful, bright facility, and love watching those Mystics, the Go-Go, the Wizards, and everything you have going on. I think, Coach Casey, you have a follow-up question or a final question.
Yeah, one more question here. And listening to you talk during all these segments and questions that we've asked, it brings up one of my favorite quotes, which, especially talking about your path to where you got, is that, nothing worth something is given to you. And I say that to our young men down at school all the time, that nothing worth something is simply given to you. You got to go after it. You got to earn it. You got to work for it. So I'm going to take things way back and ask a quick college football question. What position at New Mexico State did you play?
You know, it's funny. I tell people I play butt back because you try to get on the field, coach, so you get your butt back here. But I was a free safety.
Okay.
I played basketball my whole life. Okay. But in high school, my junior and senior year, I went out and I actually played football. And that gave me an opportunity. I could have gone to some very, very small schools to play basketball, but it just gave me an opportunity to get free school, to stay in state. I loved football, but basketball was my life. And I was very fortunate to kind of find my way back to it. In college, I was actually studying epidemiology and thought I was going to go down a totally different path. And I got an opportunity to work in the athletic department after my senior year. And that propelled me forward and got me the opportunity in UNLV. And UNLV is where I met my wife for 27 years. So God meant for us to be there and go there. And then I went to the Denver Nuggets after that. I met my surrogate father, Bernie Bickerstaff, and my life changed dramatically because of the NBA. And an opportunity to come to DC with the Wizards. And all those things together, I think, just remind me how blessed we really are in this business and how many people really get you to where you're supposed to be. There's not one single person out there that I would say they can, unless you're just fortunate enough to come right out of the box, buy a team, and run it yourself. Most people need people to get them there. So football was a great vehicle for me to get free school, something I couldn't have done otherwise. And then certainly, I didn't have any delusions of making the NFL. But I made some fantastic contacts in college that got me to where I needed to be. So it was a great exchange. But I loved football. I really did. For basketball, that's all I did. When I was 6 years old, I taught myself to read because Julius was my favorite player. I looked for the 76ers box scores, and my dad taught me what Irving looked like. And I spent the rest of my from 6 to the age 13 hanging upside down, trying to pick out my throw and wearing a headband to be like Julius. and I figured out pretty quick it wasn't going to happen. But Julius was the reason I'm in the NBA. That's who I always wanted to be.
Tommy, Steve here
Dr.
again.
J for you. For other people may not know.
My favorite player of all time as well. But Tommy,
you go.
Everyone in life has that person, that one person that influenced them to do great things. And Tommy, you've done a lot of great things in your time, and I feel like you will continue to do that. But talk to us about who that person is, and how they've influenced you to be who you are.
I had so many. I was blessed with great parents, and it started with them. And then, like I mentioned, Bernie Bickerstaff was a bit of a surrogate father to me at the time where I just lost my father. And Jerry Tarkanian was a huge influence as well. It's somebody that taught me, about basketball at the highest level. But there's a coach in the NBA, Tim Gerlich, who's been pretty much my one steady influence in basketball. I worked at camp for over 20 years as camp director. We have an NBA camp that we do together. Never really gone too far in life without bouncing stuff off of him in basketball. So he's been my basketball North Star, and as well as how we deal with the world and helping players overcome and be successful, because the NBA is such a small time. It's such a moment in time for players to get an opportunity to play in the NBA. We just have this responsibility to make sure we don't waste it. Like, let's just drag guys to the gym and get them better so they get this one opportunity. Because it's something that's just the smallest fraternity in the world. There's only 450 jobs in the NBA. And half the league turns over in 4 years. So the average career is about 2 years. And Gerd really helped me recognize that and work through with players. My roommate in college, so I say this lovingly, but I always ended up with the dented halos. My roommate in college was a guy named David Ryder. And David played shortly in the NFL for the Colts, but he had a younger brother by the name of Isaiah Ryder, J.R. Ryder. And J.R. was the first player I had at UNLV. Yeah, but what do you do well? What's going to make you shine? What's going to set you apart from people? I'll just keep it real with you guys again. I'm really good with knuckleheads. I grew up around a lot of crazy guys, and I was able to help players being able to just talk directly to them and be very transparent. And, I tell guys all the time, if you can accuse me of telling you the truth, then that I've done my job. That's all I need to do. So that was kind of my first experience. But guess what? I learned so much from JR at UNLV. There's a lot of guys that get to the NBA on talent.
but a lot of guys can't stay there because they don't have the character. And I dealt with a lot of those guys and the heartache that comes with it when they can't. But I flipped the script, and the guys that do it well and they're able to overcome. We had Garrett Temple. We were his first guaranteed contract in the NBA, a minimum. And a couple of years later, Garrett Temple, right, was able to make over $28 million. That was a tremendous impact where we just literally gave a kid an opportunity. He took it and ran. Wow. And the generational wealth to be able to take care of his family, but also to see a great thing happen to a great kid. And, all different walks of life come through. But the player stories that I always hang my hat on is when they come back to you later in life and they remind you of things that you might have forgotten. But how much small moments that we spent with them. Maybe it was that one time you encouraged them when they're about to get cut, or that one game after that game where they were just terrible and you're the only person to talk to them, not even their wife or kids to talk to them. Something like that. It means the world to those guys, and you only find out later. So we keep coming back to be positive. That's what I learned from Tim Gergerich. That's what I learned from Jerry Tarkanian and Bernie Bickerstaff. Like I said, Bernie was my first person in the NBA who gave me an opportunity. And I've never made a decision of a consequence without bouncing off of him. He's like a father. And those people, they make a huge impact.
Tommy Sheppard, you have to get going because you told us you have a limited amount of time. We appreciate the time you did give us. We're all basketball guys here. We can talk all night, so we can't keep you too long. Thank you. First and foremost, thank you for being a leader in the Washington, D.C. community with a team that D.C. loves. Mr. Tommy Sheppard, we thank you for being here. Gentlemen.
Tommy, just want to say again how appreciative I am of you coming on tonight and taking some time out of your busy schedule. It means a lot to me, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, I would echo the same thing. Like I said at the beginning, I love people's story. Thank you for sharing part of your story and especially the character piece. So thank you so much.
And keep picking that afro, fella.
You know what? Right now, I'm just hoping I have anything to pick on. My hair is going down. The visits to the barber usually take between 5 and 10 minutes now. So he's trying to tell me something.
They're not charging you the full bill for
I know I'll tell you what, I pay for the humor more than anything, but I thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it, and trust me, it's not anything to do with Tommy Sheppard. It's the whole group and everybody moving together in the same direction. We're just trying to create something that's sustainable success on the floor, but more importantly, having the character in the community to give back and to raise people's hopes and dreams. That's what we're all about, and that's what we're challenged to do. That's our requirement. That's what God requires of all. So thank you very much for your time, and you guys have a great one.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tommy Sheppard.
Take care.
Thank you, sir. Since 1939, the Collins family has served families of Montgomery County and Greater Washington with dignified professional service in their time of need. We continue the same family tradition today at our funeral home located just off the Beltway in Silver Spring, Maryland. Our family of experienced funeral directors stand ready to assist you around the clock 365 days a year. Whether you wish to pre-plan or you have experienced a loss, please contact us to discuss how we can assist you at your time of need. Call 301-593-9500 or visit collinsfuneralhome.com.
Insurance Alliance Group manages the gap between damage appraisal estimates from your insurance company and what you are rightfully owed based on your policy. They work on behalf of policyholders with claim assistance and disputes to maximize claims. Insurance Alliance Group serves as professional advisors and trusted advocates. The Insurance Alliance Group handles business and home property loss. Visit us at insurancealliancegroup.com or call 866-574-4773. A Squared is the go-to source for home and office network and audio-visual solutions. They will link technology to your lifestyle seamlessly. Visit homeandofficesolutions.com for more info.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank Tommy Sheppard for having been on the podcast this evening. Gentlemen, that was a heck of a segment, from Ward 8 to talking about injuries, what it was like in the bubble, inspiring young people, what it takes for the Wizards to be more of a success. I think Tommy covered it all, and I will say publicly thank you, Coach Turner, for making that call to bring him in.
You're welcome. anytime we can bring a great gentleman like that on to talk to our listeners, I think it's an unbelievable thing. So, Tommy, thank you again, and we look forward to having you back on sometime soon. Incredible guest. I mean, to say, to podcast here, episode 9, the general manager of the Washington Wizards joining us. We always talk about being blessed. We're blessed. And what I feel even more blessed about is listening to that man talk, not only about his own journey, his own story. He's doing it with 7 kids. He's got already 5 daughters, 2 sons. But just we had different questions going different directions, and his just knowledge and how he could just rattle off just so much good content. He was amazing. Well, so you look at an NBA general manager, and there's so many moving parts. There's recruiting, there's salary cap, there's, keeping a lot of people happy in the organization. What I got from that conversation also, he's really down to earth, does not feel like, he feels at home. He's had 26 years in the NBA, 16 with the Wizards. He knows the operation inside out. And this was a newer hire. I mean, he's been there 1 year. He's entering his 2nd year once this season is done. And I think, today we always go out for the biggest name. We go out for the most dynamic personality. Are we going to get a former NBA player to run the organization? Maybe he can relate to the players. This guy knows Washington Wizards culture. He knows Abe Pollin. He knows, the move down to I Street or F Street. It's been there 20 years, but he, if he's a guy who's done his homework, which I know he has, he knows what it takes to not only help this organization from within, strengthen the organization. What do the fans want to see? What do the people of D.C. deserve to see? And I think that Ward 8 building proves that he knows what it takes to get fans behind you and give back to the community where, they have a building in D.C. D.C. shall benefit not just downtown, but other parts of D.C. And I love that he spoke to that. And being a professor, an adjunct, right? At Georgetown, At Georgetown. Mentioned the 7 kids and all that he has going on and everything he's responsible for. What an incredible guest. I will also give a shout out too. He makes time to come and speak at high schools too. He's come down to Gonzaga, and a shout out to Paul Buckley, who's one of our math teachers there, and he'll come in and talk to the boys about numbers, about the industry, about probably a lot of the same of what he told us when we asked him about advice for young people as well. Well, certainly I couldn't take all the credit. Paul definitely was the connection in getting us to get Tommy on here today, and I definitely want to give him a shout out, and I appreciate him, who's been a big supporter of me and the basketball program down at Gonzaga. But I think the one thing that I certainly took out of this conversation with Tommy is just, he said it over and over, compete, compete, compete. And as you see, he's competed in life in a lot of different ways in a lot of different areas. Competing with the time he has to be away from his family, competing with having to grow organization that he wants to certainly take to being a championship level organization, competing in the neighborhood, putting things in place to be able to help and help the area around him and where the Wizards sit. So compete. We're going to all keep doing it, and we thank Tommy for doing it the way that he does. John Thompson, Big John. We spoke about his passing at the beginning of this episode. I apologize to our listeners. We had to step away from that conversation because we had a timed conversation with Mr. Sheppard, but let's give John his just due. Just to wrap what we talked about earlier, to recap, he made you watch the game because there was something to cheer for in, small, it can't be more than a couple square miles of Georgetown, the city itself. And it's really not a city, it's an area in Northwest Washington, D.C. But, those who don't know that think Georgetown's actually Georgetown, Washington, D.C. Right. He gave it that much notoriety and popularity. He made it so that McDonough wasn't big enough. You're not going to play at McDonough Arena. You're going to go out to the Cap Center. You're going to go out to the US Air Arena. You're going to go out to, MCI Center at first. Yeah. I've mentioned this in episodes before. My love of the game. I didn't play the game at a high level, but for a kid like me, that was everything. That was everything to watch Eric Sleepy Floyd, to watch those guys play, to watch Patrick Ewing in 1984, 85, those years, to watch that. And, you're from the area, I'm from the area, so you can't,
You're not going to find 3 other guys who have been here longer than us unless they're older than us. But to be native Washingtonians or Marylanders to watch, those Hoyas. Tell me what Georgetown meant to you, Coach Turner.
I mean, as a kid growing up, who loves basketball and loved basketball, they were my inspiration. Like, you wanted to be like those guys. You wanted to have that opportunity to be recruited, and everybody. There's not too many guys that could tell me they didn't want to play for John. That up tempo style, press and trap, and running and dunking all over people. And then, it's just always so impressive, the home guys staying home and playing for him.
Right.
And knowing that you are every year going to have a bad boy in the middle, because he always had a big man.
Big man, you.
And, you found your time. You found those days when you're out on the park by yourself trying to get it in to get better. You're imagining you're one of those guys, and your countdowns and trying to make the buzzer beaters like a Reggie Williams, or on a little baskets trying to tomahawk and break the backboard down like a Big Pat. So for me growing up, you saw like how Big John was just he was Big Papa.
Right.
He was more than just a coach. He was a father figure to everyone who he touched, and I'm not just talking about his players. It was everybody around him. He always had the word to say. It was stern at times, but he always left you with a message of understanding of how to grow, how to be strong, and I can only thank him for paving the way for a little old guy like me who's had a chance to be able to coach, and gonna miss him.
And I think back to, and I mentioned this in the segment before, going to those Georgetown games. I mean, we were huge Hoya fans going back to USA Arena, Cap Center, and being with my friends and going to that game. And as a coach now, looking back, that defense, that press that Georgetown put in, that sort of mantra that started with Coach Thompson of just being physical and low-scoring games, but some of the most exciting low-scoring games that there could be.
Yeah, they were.
I also think back to, like you said, Steve, the local aspect. And at my own alma mater, seeing guys like Mark Tillman, Robert Churchwell, Lamont Morgan,
I forgot about Churchwell.
Going to play.
Joey
at
Brown.
Georgetown was amazing.
Mark Sable.
Dwayne Bryant. Yeah, Mark Sable. Look, Coach Thompson, someone made a good point today, and I remember this hug, and I'm trying to remember the young man that he hugged after the NCAA championship game when Jordan stole it, and the hug he gave is one that's Coach Thompson to me. So that young man turns the ball over in the biggest of moments, and it's that fatherly hug of saying, you're not alone. I got you. This is okay. As the Tar Heels are celebrating. And he'll be missed for sure. For sure. There's so many connections and so many ties. And again, going back to just loving hearing him on the radio. And in some weird way, being here doing a podcast with a mic and honoring Coach Thompson here tonight. God love.
You mentioned that hug, and there was more to it than basketball for him. Again, let me go back to that number, 97% graduation rate. Now, for those who are not local folks, those who are not here in Washington, D.C., I did want to touch on those couple of things. The Allen Iverson story. If you don't know that story, Allen Iverson's from the Newport News, Hampton area. There was an incident at, I believe, a bowling alley down there.
Correct.
And Allen Iverson got into a little bit of trouble when he was in high school. And all the scholarships that he was offered were taken away. He loved football, he said, and he thought he was the best football player out there. And I remember him saying in his Hall of Fame speech that his mom would drag him to the basketball practices. He didn't want to go. As we all know, he became a Hall of Famer, an All-Star, and all of that in the NBA. But Coach Thompson, upon the urging of his mother, of Allen Iverson's mother, gave him a chance to play ball, to make the grade, and we all know what happened from there. If that chance is not there, what becomes of Allen Iverson, I don't know. But I do know that he did get the chance there, and we all got to watch, him step over Tyronn Lue in the NBA Finals in 2001. We got to see him, dunk when a guy that small shouldn't dunk. I will say this. As much as I love the NBA, I wouldn't say I'm a historian of the NBA, but I don't know if we saw anybody tougher than Allen Iverson. He would go in there, and if you're 6'10", 260, he didn't care. He was going to go in there, try to grab him a rebound. He was going to do it with some attitude, and he's going to talk about practice. And that's what he's going to do, right? So that's that story.
Talk about practice or Manziel?
Practice, not a game. Not a game, not pasta.
Right.
We're talking about practice.
I was going back to the Johnny Manziel.
Right, that's your little brother, though.
That our audience doesn't know about.
Can we ding him? That's in the outtakes. It's getting rough up here in the studio, guys.
Producer
Steve is going to have to play, moderator here.
Don't think I forgot that little slide in there.
All right. And the second thing, if you're not from the area, back in the 80s and early 90s, there was a gentleman named Rayful Edmond III who was a street guy, and he ran a lot of what happened in the underworld of the streets here in D.C. He was a crime boss, I guess you would say. He was a drug lord, I guess you would say. And not word on the street, the real word is that he got close to some Georgetown players. And I think Alonzo Mourning was one of them. John Thompson caught word of that. John Thompson did not approach Rayful Edmond III himself, but through sources, he got Rayful Edmond III to come to campus and have a talk with him. Right. They had what was a cordial sit down, and at one point, when Rayful Edmond III denied that any of Georgetown's players were in trouble, if you know Big John, he is 6'10". He is a heavy-set guy. He does have a heavy voice. And when he stands up and points right in your face and tells you what will happen to you if you talk or touch to any of his players anymore, to this day, John Thompson, I believe, is the only one who did not catch the wrath of Rayful Edmond III for getting in Rayful Edmond III's face. No players were bothered again. John continued to have the program he wanted. I mean, Rayful would show up at some of these Urbo games and these Urban Coalition games and summertime games because he was connected or close to some of those players. That's what John Thompson did. That was John Thompson justice, in his time down there, at McDonough Arena at Georgetown University.
I think that everybody gets consumed with the wins, the Final Fours, all the accolades. I mean, think about the things he did for Georgetown University, for Georgetown basketball, for basketball. I mean, itself, the sport,
Big East.
For everything he did. But what you just mentioned, the number one thing that I think any coach that's mission driven, and Big John was mission driven, was to have your players back. To have your players back. And when I went back to that NCAA championship loss late, it was Fred Brown, because I was trying to remember that name and that hug. But John had his players back, and you had that Allen Iverson clip earlier. That's what it's all about, right? The wins and losses, they're great, they're tough.
They're a bunch of them.
At the end of the day, every single one of those players, and we'll admit it 10, 15, 20 years later, that they learned the lessons from that coach that can't be replicated, and he was going to have their back. And that's what I think about when you tell that story, that you ain't messing around with my guys. These are my guys.
There it is. Chrissy, take us to break, please.
O'Neill Development is a construction, remodeling, and development firm that has been active in Maryland, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and the Eastern Shore since 1975. O'Neill Development specializes in custom residential work, providing extensive pre-construction and construction services. Find us at www.o'neilldev.com or call 301-840-9310.
Next Level Lacrosse. Train like a Spartan. Next Level Lacrosse is dedicated to providing a terrific lacrosse experience that is intensely focused on player development and character formation. Players at all levels will improve significantly through professional coaching and carefully designed training programs that stress proper technique and a tireless work ethic. You'll find us at www.nextlevelspartans.com.
Become a friend of the program. Friendship level contributions start at just $25. Each contribution helps to fuel Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill. To find out more or make your contribution, go to www.turnerando'neill.com and click Friends of the Podcast.
Gentlemen, there's another topic I want to jump into right quick as we watch Game 1 of the Miami-Milwaukee series on the screen here. The NBA, led by Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks, did something super, super moving last week and very necessary for what's going on here in our world. They did not come out of the locker room. They refused to play, and their voices needed to be heard. The NBA took a pause. I won't say a boycott. They weren't boycotting the NBA. I believe Mr. Sheppard mentioned that to us. But once, the media says that, you can't pull that back. But they had something to say. Both of you coaches have been very vocal, and it's been very important to you that on this podcast, we don't just talk lacrosse. We don't just talk, the fun stuff when it comes to the world of sports. We don't just talk about, your championships or your championships, but you have invited the conversation where we've been able to talk about some tough subjects. Black Lives Matter is still an important subject. Racial injustice is still an important subject. One America, two justice systems is what we're talking about here. What did you think of what you saw last week?
I mean, to start out, I think everybody, with the way people protest, the way people publicize it, everyone is so quick to point a finger that, the NBA is doing it the wrong way, or the NHL didn't act fast enough, or MLB didn't, or NFL, and so many different things. And my response to that always is, at least they're doing something, okay? And I think it took great courage, not only from the players, but the management, to support what they did, whether anybody agrees with it or not. They did something. And to see sort of the movement behind it, to see eventually all the professional sports support this, it's moving the needle ever so slightly in a better direction. It's moving the needle that we're having this conversation right here in the studio as we record. It's putting attention into the phones, because we all know what young kids are looking at, to see that people have had enough, and it's slowly, and I won't say but surely, but it is slowly moving that needle. And I felt very adamant to come out first here and say, I get it. I see on my Facebook, I see on my Twitter, I see on my Instagram, both sides of it, okay? Both sides of people that are upset with how pro athletes, they should just play, or, this with the election. And I know I'm going on a tangent here, but at least people are trying to do something. And that's kind of how I feel. At least people are willing to put it out there. At least conversations are starting to be had, whether uncomfortable or not. And I continually have to ask myself, what do I need to do to better myself? What are these actions telling me? How do I support Steve? How do I support young people in my program? How do I support my own children, right? In the conversations I have at home. And I think every single day we have the opportunity to have these conversations and to continue to try to better ourselves. Steve?
Coach Turner.
I'm very, very pleased and thankful to the men of the NBA and the women of the WNBA for standing up. I mean, it is huge. And like you said, Casey, some people stood up at a different time. I'm not holding that against them. At least they did something, just like you said. I am angered by those who continually say that they don't deserve to use their platform. That's a big issue for me. So you're telling me, again, shut up and dribble. Shut up and dribble. That's what I hear when I hear people who are frustrated. Oh, they shouldn't not play the game. Well, why? For your entertainment? Because of your entertainment? When people are dying, people are being shot at for no reason. Like, come on, people, wake the hell up. Like, it's bigger than that. And for me, like Casey said, the needle, you see it, you see it moving slightly, ever so slightly, and you want to see it move faster. But there's a lot of work to still be done. As I keep saying, I pray and hope that we don't stop this conversation. There's too many times we let sports come back into play, and we move back into, you know, our regular days and our regular lives, and forget about all that's going on. There's too much that has gone on in this time for us not to keep having this conversation, and for people who are out there to not wake the hell up. Like,
you know, and what I've seen, what has impressed me the most is this is not a show. You know, these guys are passionate about what we're talking about here. LeBron, every time he gets in front of a mic, they interview him after a game, he's talking about what's going on. He's not looking at cue cards. He doesn't have a prepared speech, but it's important to him to talk about it. So he's the face of the NBA. He is the elder statesman now in the NBA. But then you have Jamal Murray, who yesterday, after he drops 50 points, has to take several pauses in an interview because it means that much to him. He said that he's wearing his shoes. He's wearing Black Lives Matter. He's wearing George Floyd. He's wearing what he's wearing because, you know, these figures who have fallen to police brutality, you know, mean something to him. They give him power. They give him power. And, you know, while I can't quote everyone's name who has spoken in front of a microphone, but Pete Carroll, I've never been a Pete Carroll fan. He spoke about it. We're not talking NBA. You know, Doc Rivers, of course, has spoken about it. You know, we've had several faces speak, Tommy Sheppard speaking about it. You know, so it clearly matters to the NBA. You know, it should matter to the world. And for you to say that you've heard some people say you should not use that platform for that, you know, they've got the attention of the casual fan, the big time fan. They've got the attention. You must use your platform to speak about something that's so important to what it is we're doing here. Hey, we haven't even discussed that. One of the agreements that the NBA owners came to with the players is that these NBA arenas are going to be used for voting centers, polling places. Mm-hmm. And I saw a tweet that said, you know what? Let's get the college players to stand up for the same thing and get some of these university arenas to be used for the very same thing. For anybody who is following but not following closely enough, 30 teams are in the NBA. 29 teams will use their arena as a polling place. The Minnesota Timberwolves are owned by the actual city, so I assume there's a conflict of interest. But 29 teams, the property where the stadium sits is owned by the owner, and 29 facilities will be used as polling places.
You go back to what also Tommy Sheppard was saying about the bubble and the communal aspect of it, the community, you know, being on the, like, their little tram to the arena with LeBron's there, or, you know, they're all breaking bread at different times. It's almost like they're at, you know, back to AAU basketball or like camp basketball. And so these guys, let's keep in mind, they're away from their families. They're away from their usual norm. They're seeing the world outside of them. All the issues going on, right? And I'm going to go back to, at least they're doing something, because while they're stuck in this bubble, they're taking a stand. They're doing what they believe is right. And here's the thing, you know, Keith Wilford talked about it last week, which is, you know, sometimes we don't have the answers, but again, at least we're trying, you know, at least something's, people are trying to get the word out. They're trying to, you know, say we have this empathy. Please have empathy with us and understand that this matters very, very deeply. And so I commend it. Well, I absolutely commend it.
The easy thing to do would be to keep playing. That's the easy thing to do. Not fight the fight. Be in a bubble and act like the rest of the world is not happening or going on. But when you see someone who looks like you and is not being treated fairly, when you know that, you know, there's no amount of fame, there's no amount of money, there's no amount of affluence you can have, that, you know, being the wrong color will and can and will still affect you. Coach, I'm sorry, I feel like you were jumping in here.
No, I'm listening. I'm listening, because I think that's a hell of a big part of it.
That's a big part.
That's the other big part of it. Is we have people who are out here who aren't listening, or who aren't even willing to engage in listening, and it makes this fight. I hate using that word, but it makes it even tougher.
We'll get back to you on the other side of this break. At Peace Players International, we use the power of sport to unite, educate, and inspire young people to create a more peaceful world. We offer sport programming, peace education, and leadership development to those living in communities of conflict. We challenge the hate that is driven by the fear of our differences. Find out more at www.peaceplayers.org.
Connect with us socially on Instagram and Facebook at Turner O'Neill Podcast, on Twitter at Turn On Podcast, on YouTube. Just search Turner and O'Neill, then subscribe. And of course, you can visit our website at www.turnerando'neill.com.
Building your brand is an important part of your business growth. By partnering with Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill, you'll gain the exposure and brand recognition behind our podcast. With thousands of listeners, subscribers, and website visitors, your company will benefit from our popularity online and during the podcast. Our partners also benefit from our exposure on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Buzzsprout, and Apple Podcasts. Inquire today and let's partner to build your brand.
Be sure to listen now at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Buzzsprout, or Google Podcasts. Download the app and subscribe to the podcast. Don't miss an episode of Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill.
Become a friend of the program. Friendship level contributions start at just $25. Each contribution helps to fuel Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill. To find out more or make your contribution, go to www.turnerando'neill.com and click Friends of the Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for joining us today. You know, a lot's going on in the world right now. You know, John Thompson, Black Lives Matter, the NBA is standing up for social justice. We had Tommy Sheppard on the show today, and, you know, a lot's going on right now. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for allowing me to host this show, produce this show. There's a lot going on in this world right now. And, you know, I heard Kenny the Jet Smith say that he doesn't hate 2020. It brought him closer to his kids, more meaningful conversations and that sort of thing. And while I can't say I don't hate 2020, what I am happy about is this idea became a reality, this show. Yeah. It's allowed me to have some conversations. It's allowed all of us to have some conversations. We've touched 15 to 20,000 people in terms of listeners with the content that we're bringing here. Gentlemen, this is your baby here. This is your baby. So thank you for bringing this out. Thank you to Chrissy, DJ Chrissy and Paula for being a part of what we do. Coach O'Neill, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I would agree with what you just mentioned. I saw what Kenny Smith said, and I would have to thank the pandemic in a weird way that maybe this podcast does happen down the road, but I don't think it happens right now without this. Or without
with this kind of content.
Correct. And at the timing of it, where it just, you know, when our sports teams are ripped away from us, that we have the time and to invest in this, to have these production meetings, to grow this relationship. And I just thinking back to Friday's production meeting when, you know, as a white 42-year-old male father of three, you know, asking Steve, like, what are some of the things you want to hear? Because, you know, talking about this, while it can be uncomfortable, you know, I just wanted to kind of answer a question where you said, you know, what have you been doing? And the honest answer is, I've mentioned kind of my spiritual direction on this podcast a few times, but I've been praying a lot. I've been praying a whole damn lot. And while that's not going to solve the world's problems, it's given me more restoration, more peace into these three questions that I think a lot of people need to ask. And it's very simple. And it's reflecting back on what I've done in the past with any issues like this or the feelings that friends of mine are going through. And not being upset about that maybe I didn't do the right thing in high school or in college or when I've seen something, but just to recognize it, call it out. And then secondly, to go in, okay, what am I doing right now to help my friends, to help educate young people, to help have conversations with my own family, my wife. And then lastly, what am I going to do? Am I going to go back to last week? Am I going to live my truth? Am I going to support my black friends, the black players? and continue to try to live my truth. And so I encourage people to ask those 3 questions, and to continue, like you said, Steve, to listen, and don't be so quick to point fingers and think that the world's problems are just going to simply go away if you don't stand the blank up and do what is right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've got some housekeeping to take care of, and then we're going to turn it over to Coach Turner, who has our final word today. Listen up. Next week, we're going Facebook Live with Turner and O'Neill. We have a pretty important subject we're going to talk about. We're going to open up this studio. We're going to bring you inside the studio, and we're going to open up one person's heart at this table because we've got something we've got to talk about. This is monumental. Got to bring Cole on the show. When are we going to have Cole call in?
Maybe he'll call in on the live show. No, we'll definitely have him in. He's ready to roll.
All right. And the NFL looks like they're gearing up to play. We might want to bring Joey back in here for you fantasy football heads. Write to us. Let us know if you want to hear from Joey because he is an NFL guru. He is a fantasy football guy. You guys are back to school now, so thank you for doing what you do with the young men at Gonzaga. But next week, you guys definitely want to be a part of what we do. Carve out some time. Next Monday, we are going Facebook Live with a subject matter that we need you to support us with, and we need to open up the studio so y'all can see what's going on. This is monumental.
What time's makeup next week before the makeup?
You're Hollywood. You don't need any makeup, fella.
I thought you'd,
A little rouge over there. Is that what you need?
Come on, man.
All right, Coach Turner, you have the last word today.
My final word of the day, or my quote of the day, or am I getting both in right now?
You get 2 for 1. It's 2 for 1 Mondays, fella.
All right,
Take it to the rim, big fella.
My final thought of the day is, we've talked about some serious things that are happening every day right now, and I just want to hope and pray that everyone out there is trying to be safe and as they can be. And I just ask everyone today, man, hug your loved ones. Time with them is precious, it's valuable. We never know when someone close to us could go. I want to tell the Thompsons, my prayers are with you and your family at this time, and know that you've got a village here in the DMV that's got their arms around you guys right now, and we're here for you in any way that you need us. And to that final quote of the day, I'm going to stay with basketball coach John Wooden. It is amazing how much can be accomplished if no one cares who gets the credit. It is amazing how much can be accomplished if no one cares who gets the credit. It's all about the team. And right now, we got to become the best team we can be, people here in the United States.
Chrissy, pull the plug.
Take It To You with Turner and O'Neill would like to thank our partners, sponsors, and donors. Our partners, the Tamara Cusick Team, Dynamic DJ Entertainment, Ray Cruz and MCF Mortgage, Healthy Baller, and Insurance Alliance Group, LLC. Our sponsors, O'Neill Development, LLC, Next Level Lacrosse, Peace Players International, A Squared Home and Office Solutions, and Collins Funeral Home. Our donors, Redwood Investments, Justin O'Neill, donor, and Winsight Media. Take It To You with Turner and O'Neill is produced by Kurtis Cross and engineered by DJ Chrissy. All material is the exclusive property of the podcast and may not be copied, rebroadcast, or used in any way without written consent of the podcast. The views, ideas, and commentary of podcast guests are solely their own and not necessarily endorsed by the podcast. You may submit questions, podcast ideas, and commentary to turnero'neillpodcast@gmail.com. No compensation is offered for submitted material. Should we choose to use your idea, comment, or question, you agree to your likeness, social media identity, and/or information being used on the podcast. Take It To You with Turner and O'Neill is recorded weekly and distributed via Google Podcasts, Spotify, Buzzsprout, Apple Podcast, and other popular podcast platforms. Some portions of the podcast may be pre-recorded. Be sure to search and subscribe. Join us socially on Facebook and Instagram at Turner O'Neill Podcast, on Twitter at Turn On Podcast, and on YouTube. Search Turner and O'Neill and subscribe. Our website is www.turnerando'neill.com. Partnership opportunities are available.